Hi, my name is Benedict. This is going to be a look at, review and discussion around a new EQ that I discovered on KVR called Relief EQ, a dev called yg331. So of course the immediate question always has to be, why do we need a new EQ? Setup, well, I found this thing over at KVR, free at GitHub. If we go over to GitHub, we get the usual annoying sort of like, stuff at the beginning. I know that's all techie stuff, but I'm a mix engineer. I just like, yeah. So my first question is, can I find it to download? Because a lot of times you go to GitHub that you can't work out how to download. But look, there's a button, get latest release, winning. There's a bit of explanation. I run at 88K, so this oversampling stuff, wherever it was, it doesn't seem to have been relevant for me. I haven't tried it, don't know, don't care. I'm not a big fan of oversampling per se. I know about it, I know how it works, blah, 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 blah. But it gets into how it started. This is kind of cool, but most people are not going to read it. You don't need to. And then we go to the how do I download it? He does ask for some sort of, perhaps giving him a coffee or something, and if this is a tool that I were to use regularly, like say ADHD's leveling tool, I think is an absolutely fabulous compressor. Yes, I've given him, well, several cups of coffee for that, because it's rare that a mix goes by without it being used. But the assets, the download stuff is pretty easy. I use Windows like any sane human being, and so the download was easy. I got a zip file, you open it, release, probably not the thing, and then there we go. It's a self-contained VST, so I simply opened up the common files, like program files, common files, VST3, and you can drop it in here. Personally, when I'm testing things, put it in a testing place because it's super easy to find them and throw them at. But you know, this is easy to do. If you are afflicted with a boat anchor, then you're going to have to work that one out. It should be pretty easy. Oh, right. Now we've got it all installed. We run our door and bing, there it is. There can be some difficulties with some VST, especially from newer developers. We may have encountered some of those. We'll talk about them later. The quick overview, its functions. Well, let's hear it first, because hearing an EQ is far more important than seeing it. So here we have a... You're going to love this by the time you've heard it for half an hour. And we bring in the EQ. It sounds different. It sounds horrible in these headphones, so where I come to make some decisions later, it's probably going to be awful. In terms of features, we've got an in-out. I will say, while this is incredibly sensible in many ways, it's not necessarily the most conventional way of doing it. Normally you'll have a bypass or an on-off, you know, the little zero with the something that's conventional. The in here is next to the picture, so I thought, oh, it's supposed to be for the picture. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Nothing fatal. You get used to it. You see I went to it straight away with this, like, very easy. Okay, that's cool. This does nothing. I almost would have preferred if this was the button, but then I probably would have made the same criticism. It's just a quirk. We've got the ability to reset the whole thing. If we control click, again, if you're an Apple afflicted, you have to work that out yourself. You can reset anything from there. You can also click here and resize. 100%, there isn't an option to set this for every instance after this that I open that I would like. It shouldn't be the end of the world to make. I did also note that you can access it from here. Little kooky, but I'm not going to complain about it. There's not really anything wrong with that. Oh, okay, from anywhere on the UI, you can do this. Hang on, automate remote. Oh, they're probably for VST automations and stuff, and I didn't actually look into that, to be fair. I assume it works, possibly a flawed assumption, because I have had some things off GitHub that as soon as you automate them, they explode, but I'm not going to get into that, because Automating of EQs is commonly a little bit more of an advanced feature, and this is probably not aimed at that. Maybe someone else tried. Then in terms of functions, we've got our bands, we've got our Q, which is our bandwidth, and then the how much or little of this we're going for. So plus minus 12 dB is okay. I do like to see more, but that's all right. Q, we can go really wide or really stupid narrow. So that's all pretty standard stuff. Control allows me to reset. Double clicking allows me to type in a number. Actually, here's a question. What if I type in a number above 12? No, it doesn't let me type in crazy numbers. Bogus. Although it would be very easy to break the whole system if we do that, so I can understand not allowing that. So pretty easy. We can grab anywhere here. There doesn't seem to be any distinction or oddities or anything like that. So that's cool. When you come to the device, everything is already set up with some suggested bands. I'm not 100% sure that I agree with him, but, that's okay. Everyone's got to start somewhere. You've got this curve here. Whether you're in or out, initially there's no sense of anything happening. A curve doesn't actually appear to be doing anything until you get above or below 0. Makes sense. You can turn any curve on or off. So if we're auditioning, which is better, we can audition. We may have decided that that sounds good, but we want to check whether, okay, a bit thick, focusing on the metallic of the kick. So all of that it's all good. As such, it all functions as expected. We can turn each of these on and off. I'm not sure that that's the best color, because quite honestly, normally when something's grayed out, it is off. In this case, black is off. But again, that's a thing you will get used to. I think it probably was an unwise choice just choosing grey. You could go with a different colour. Light blue for bass does seem a little funny because bass is heavy and light blue is light. It's the air colour, so you sort of think, why wouldn't we use this? But again, none of that is fatal. Each one of these bands, we can choose between a bell, which is this shape. Let's just get these guys out of the game for the moment. So we just got the one, we've got the bell. We can change its width, as we showed before. We've got a low shelf, which takes everything below that and turns it up down. No Q on this. We've then got a high shelf, which is the complete opposite. And then there's a low shelf 12 and high shelf 12. And that has a Q, which through technical correctness allows you to do this thing, where you end up with a kooky sort of a result. There may be a cause to do that. I don't know, but it allows that. There doesn't seem to be any reason given as to why we would choose the low shelf 12 versus the low shelf. I don't know. But I do find a lot of times the default for low shelves or high shelves, particularly high shelf here, can seem to be a bit much, so being able to smoothen them out it's okay. We'll discuss a little bit more something that causes some frustrations with that later, and of course the high shelf version here too, so we can go up, down. And then there are low pass and high pass. So we'll do the high pass first. Up to 24 dB. Higher can be nice, but it's not fatal. There's not a lot of bass here anyway, so So it does let you clear stuff away. It might feel slightly clinical, but it's fine. I've got no particular complaint with that. It works just fine. The low pass, turn this guy off. The same options, but there's no cue, so you can't do screaming Minimoog filter sweeps or whatever with it, but it's not really the intention, so again, no particular complaints there. So there are your options, and obviously you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bands, so you've got really plenty to be working with. If for some reason you needed more bands, you can always put another instance in. Like I might say, look, I'm going to end up using all of these bands for a master curve or an instrument curve. If I then really needed a high pass, then I can just make another instance either before or after, depending upon where I want them in the chain. Most of the time I want them after the first curvy curve. I can then just have my "they shall not pass" thing. So it's not the end of the world. It's a little messy, but not the end of the world. So all really good. Core functionality is probably the best way of explaining this. I am going to point out some slight dilemmas. If I have something set up and then I say, okay, I want to reset that, and I go to, and this may be a reason issue, I go to reset, look what happens. It's reset the size. Let's blow them back up again so that we can see a little bit. My overall level is now minus 12 dB. It's going to take a while to realize what's happened there. So that's not great. I'm not seeing anything. It's turned all of these off. So I'd have to go through and either reinstance or do my default to everything. So that I am going to seriously call a bug. Whether that's a reason-only thing, I don't know, but calling a major reset on the device has not reset it to its default values. It's just gone to let's go to the lowest number we can find within the system. Not cool. A lot of people may not encounter that, but I did a reset and it's like, it broke. Not a cool thing. On the pictures at KVR and their own site, we see a spectrum window in here. As in, we see a spectrum happening. I see the line graph from my funky curve, but I can't see the flickery dancing stuff. In certain ways, that doesn't bother me because I don't EQ with my eyes. I don't mix with my eyes. But they show it and it's not there. So again, is this a reason thing that's missing? That's actually how I found the right-click UI zoom. But it doesn't seem to be there. I couldn't find any particular way of making that happen, so I'm going to call that a bug as well. But it's relatively early for the developer, so bugs are going to happen, and they are, as I said earlier, more likely to happen in Reason because Reason is a little different and sometimes rather exacting about its expectations. One thing that I think is a flaw, and I think would ultimately be the killer if I didn't have other things, is the weighting of this curve. You see that there's a huge amount of space down here. I mean, there's nothing audible. Even at 20, there's nothing audible. But between 20 and 0 hertz, there is nothing useful there. So allowing us to even see it just seems a waste of space where we have a relatively small window, bearing in mind that many spectrum views are like, you can blow them up to full screen and what have you. So it's not terrible this is small, it's just not well considered for what we really need. And I know people are obsessed with bass, because how low can you go? Hear the cattle cry, death row. Sorry. Gary Clisle. But we need up here far more. And as you see, you get up 10K and it becomes really hard to do anything. And this actually goes off the edge of the map. So particularly for a high shelf, goes up to 41. Okay, I hadn't even realised that. I mean, why? Yeah, okay, they all go up to 41. Odd. 20 to 20 is really all that's useful, but we see here that we've just got a lot of difficulty. 10k there, it just looks wrong. Only a 3 dB boost, and it looks immense. And so if you're seeing with this with your eyes, which you're intended to do, it just makes it really hard to manage the more important stuff up here. If you're seeking to get clarity and air, your air frequencies and brightness are all shoved within like this much range. And especially when I realised that you can go from 20, there's that much range which is also wasted as well. Now I know you can type in a particular number, but it's visually just not good. So I would say bugger some rules about logarithms and exponentials and this, that, and the other. Get rid of the 20, move it there straight away, and then move this up so that we can see the 20 and make a bigger range up here visible. Even just taking this and shunting it sideways would make far more sense than what we've got here. That is disconcerting. I found that unpleasant to use. Okay, so they're my concerns or problems. None of them are killer, but that one is really kind of offsetting. So we'll just make a quick curve here. I'm just going by. I feel like this is very bright in the top end. Let's give it a little bit of snap. So there. Let's put it back in the mix. Again, I can't hear properly in these things, but the drum, especially the bass, is lost. It comes forward now, so it's done its job. Some people will say, oh, well, it's louder here. And let's assume that's about parity, probably. I'm never a fan of that, simply because I believe we want to make some things louder and some things less loud. And if you can't tell the difference, you're not ready to do the job. So obviously I want some things to be louder. So in terms of does it do its job, when we have this out of the game and we're running in a mix, yes, it's done its job. We're now going to have a look at, again, in action, but we're going to put ourselves in action across a whole mix. So we've got this mix. We don't want particularly wide, I'm just looking for punch. Not looking for what's nasty, I'm looking for what I can hear is a little too thick, a little too much of. That's a big mistake. There's this thing that sort of says, well, you do this and you look for nasty. It's all nasty. And that just leads to putting like 300 of these cuts, and you basically built a phaser. It's nasty, hard to let go of because you've done all the right things, but it's wrong. What we do is we listen and we go, okay, is there something that I think there's too much of? Definitely there's this too much in the top end. And that's really common in all of the Reason samples. They are brutally clear and clean. See if we can pull out a bit of, maybe there. You can see my moves are pretty small. Now there I'm finding the whatever it is, a bass or something or other. I just threw some loops on top of each other, so it's a bit of a mess. And I just want to pull those out a little bit. I pull them forward. Now it's best at this point to A-B without eyes. Flat, as in no device whatsoever. Our new improved EQ. It's 2 on the top. It has given us more punch and a little bit of the Public Enemy kind of there's not going to be a lot of bass in here because it just isn't there. And I'm not going into what's right and wrong and how it should be done. We're merely seeing, with this one tool, can we improve what we've got? Yes, that's my mastering engineer approach. Is that better? Yeah. So that's all cool. Now, all of that works, and it's all fairly simple. But again, I've got to say, with 35 years of experience, trained in an actual studio, not some silly college, but an actual real working studio, that is going to be a different approach from the average person who's downloading free stuff. It is nice and simple. It's clear. I'm not judging his Spectrum flashy bit because it's not there. I am judging his curve that he shows us, the view of it, a logarithm or whatever it is, simply because, as I said, it's just a waste of space here, and then we've been locked out here, and of course have to question that going above 20k, because why would you? What's the purpose of that? Maybe there is some compelling purpose, but he didn't explain why. But that's cool. I can get a nice result. Now, let's be fair and look at some alternates, because these are all free as well. This one I've spent the least amount of time with. I'm not going to show you TDR Nova. It is a fine device. It's classy. It works. I just don't dig it. I have used it at times, but to me it's bland. There are a couple of problems from my perspective. One is that it defaults to the auto level compensation on, and while people say, I'm just like, as I said before, bugger off with that. If I want some bits to be louder, I want them to be louder. I don't want my signal to get overall quieter or to lose impact. If I want it louder, I want it louder. If I want it softer, guess what? I want it softer. Getting rid of things for A-B comparisons that I don't do that way. EQing's generally about EQing in the mix for me far more than EQing individual sounds. Yes, individual sounds, it is possible to be influenced by its more louderer, but if you don't know this already, you again say you are not ready for prime time. So I'm not touching that one, not because I don't like it, but just because I don't use it. This one I have had, and it's gotten in a couple of mixes, but probably more because I was using it. It is interesting. It's free. I made a curve. Off, on. It has an advantage in that we can take something and make it dynamic. Oops. So off, on. Again, mild curves. The dynamic feature is interesting. It's rare that I use dynamic EQ in a mix. If doing ABs on an instrument, put a dynamic thing on an instrument, yes, it will sound better, and it will sound better in the mix. Just like if you put saturation on or off against something in a mix, it sounds better. Do I need it to make my mixes work? As a general rule, no. But I don't have tons of sounds that have problems, because if they had problems, I either don't use them or I've solved the problem in some other way. But that said, dynamic EQ is an interesting solution. So if I had said, okay, I'm going to add stupid amounts here, then I might... So that allows there to seem to be more bass until there becomes more bass, at which case it starts to pull back. There are logical reasons why that could be cool. It's obviously got the I can drag things around routine on the thing. This is just unpleasant to use, I'm sorry. But it does have the dynamic thing, and that's interesting. It's a freebie. Technically, it absolutely outguns the Relief EQ that we're officially looking at. Is it a better choice? If you're beginning, absolutely not. Absolutely not at all. If you know how to use Pro Q3 but aren't prepared to pay for it, and I don't use it at all, I'm not a fan. It's up there with TDR Nova. It's really the same complaints with that. I find it just bland. Then the ZL EQ is, so this is my personal favourite. Q range. It has some little bugs, but nothing that's really problematic. It's got a nice view. See here, we can see plenty of space up here, and there's a lot of space between 50 and 20, but it is useful. Bypass. So just proof that we are listening to that one. I like it. This very visual is great. You can rearrange bands. Let's say that one's at 4. Actually, no. We can sort all our bands and rearrange them. That's a really, really nice feature. I did raise that actually with ZL Guy, and I kind of wish I hadn't. It's just really nice to use. I don't do a lot of this on instruments, but it is great on instruments. I use this in my masters. That's just hard-coded into my masters. It's a really nice EQ that sounds great. There's a lot of technical stuff that you can get into, but I have all of that off. And the other option is, and yes, this is one that I made. It is free. It's a character device. There are some similarities to Relief in the sense that it is kind of simple, but it doesn't look quite as simple, and that is we've got a spectrum, but we can't interact with it other than to simply turn it off. Bypass. On. It's a very feel-only sort of device. It's semi-parametric, paragraphic, in the sense that each of these only has a limited range. But the range is made very clear. There is a kind of a dynamic circuit, but it is very strange indeed. So it's like a broken dynamic circuit. It does weird basically distortion. So sometimes it sounds great, sometimes it just sounds broken, but while I know it's broken, I left it there because occasionally it's kind of cool. But if you use it and go, that's weird, yeah, it's weird, turn it off. That's why it defaults to off. You can choose shelved, but I just always use bands on everything. Again, I work it the same way as you saw before. I find the thing through hearing and going, okay, that's what I'm hearing, and then add or subtract. So it's a different approach. I like it because you're not looking at one band for everything. You're sort of going, okay, this band I'm looking at my high mids, this one I'm looking at my treble. You can definitely cross them over. It just made no sense for me to make these knobs that go the whole range, because then they were useless. So again, we turn it off. It has a little bit of a sound of its own. That's it, it's a character device. So if we were to compare them all, flat, as in it's not going through any of these devices, Relief, ZL with a little bit of dynamics, Q range, and a power EQ, and flat. I think ZL's gotten a bit of advantage through using more bass boost and that dynamic thing. So that is, in a sense, is perhaps a little unfair, but otherwise there's no appreciable sonic difference. There's no right or wrong here in terms of how they sound. It all comes down to purely workflow. The conclusion, yes, Relief EQ, it is nice. It is outgunned by particularly ZL, and I guess technically there by Nova. Some people will say, but Nova is more technically accurate in this. You're not ready to be a mix engineer, Sonny Jim. It's all about feel. So the Beatles could make records with an audio range of about 4 hertz, and they sound brilliant today. So if you can't make a great record with an audio range of, then you're just not ready for prime time. Go back to what matters, the music, not the technical BS. This minimizes its technical BS, which is kind of nice. It does create some BS here by mishandling, but that should be a relatively easy fix, even if only, as I said, just shunting that little graphy thing, move it one thing to the left, and then it will 20 will be at the here, and 20 up the top should in theory be about here. Then it will be infinitely more useful. Understanding the difference between these two shelves, or just honestly dumping one of them, may be a good thing. Solving possible bugs, yeah, but it works and it does its job. So it's not a terrible place to start at all. If somebody said to me, oh, well, what's the best EQ to start with? Then, while part of me is going to say, well, Q range, because I think it's a really great EQ, part of me is going to say, well, my power EQ, because I built it for that. I would also, as long as there aren't actually enduring bugs here, would be thinking, well, look, this is a fair place to start as well, because it is more ears than eyes. So you can't physically drag around here, which is probably a really good thing. You've got more limited choices. You haven't got like 3,500 points. You've got to shoot your whole shot with this. It's got everything that you need here. Overall, yeah, you can hear that I can make a nice curve for a master with this just fine. Definitely not a bad place to start, seeing that it's pulling you out of some of the mixing with eyes thing of dragging things around based on, but the pointy bit there. No, bugger the pointy bit there. You've got to feel it, and if you can't feel it, you're just not ready. And as long as you're dragging things around based upon looking at the screen, then you're never going to find the feel thing. So in that sense, yes, this gives itself an advantage because it's not bogged down by especially things like this, which are just not trying to be unkind. This does work, but geez. This also is not encumbered with stupidities like matching EQ curves from AC/DC songs. It doesn't allow you to bring in sidechain stuff. At least let's confirm this. I don't believe it does. No, there's no sub-input to be able to compare A to B and solve your mixing problems by applying this spectrum against that spectrum. You've just got to go through and go, okay, how do I make this work in the mix? It's an interesting device. I would like to see some of the quirks addressed, but for what I think may be a first time out from a developer, I would encourage a better developer name, yg331, but I guess it's hard to come up with a developer name. I mean, there's some interesting ones. I mean, this one, LKJB, is just horrible. Your name, maybe. I don't know, but that's one of those things. It doesn't change the product per se, but it does change the ability to remember it. Relief also as well. Relief from what? Hand relief? Relief that it's not so as hard to use as ZL. It's nice to have a sense. If you don't have another name, then numbers are just fine. So whatever, again, small points. If you do find it interesting, go out. If you do find yourself using it regularly, please buy the developer a coffee, because this shows promise. We want to encourage him to do more. And besides, there's a huge amount of effort that goes into this, and if you're getting value out of it, just going, oh, well, I got it for free and I deserve it, that's a pretty nutty way of doing things. Move the letters around. Because, you know, when you go to put your thing out there and hope to get money, whether scraping it off Spotify, stupid mistake, or just asking somebody to pay you at Bandcamp, how is it different when you have put your time and energy into something as opposed to this fellow, if you're getting value out of it? All right, if you want help with mixing, learning to mix, production of tracks, any of those things that I can do, there are links below. Follow them. Have a great day.